Yes, how are we all? I hope all is well. My name is Sachin, and this is the Total Cricket Podcast, episode 17. Today I'm going to be reviewing the first test between Sri Lanka and India, so let's get into it. Now, in my preview for this game, I said that if Sri Lanka want to have any chance of winning this game, they're going to have to get lucky with the toss and hope that Ranganaherath can weave his usual fourth innings magic. And the minute Virat Kohli won the toss and elected to bat, I think it was pretty clear who was going to win this game. Not to mention, within the first hour of the game, Asela Gunaratne fractured his thumb and was ruled out of the game, which meant that Sri Lanka only had 10 batsmen. I think it was pretty clear from quite early on who was going to win this game. India getting 600 in their first innings. They had an absolutely incredible start, getting 399 for only the loss of 3 wickets on the first day. Shikhar Dhawan with an absolute demolition job. He got 190 off 168 deliveries. What a return to Test cricket for him. Cheteshwar Pujara with 153. A majestical innings from a great player. Was in control from start to finish. On the second day, Sri Lanka did come back a little bit, but in the context of the game as a whole, it was all too little too late. Still some decent contributions from the Indian middle to lower order. Ajinkya Rahane getting 57, Ravichandran Ashwin with 47, Hardik Pandya on debut getting a quick fire 50 of 49, and even Mohammad Shami hitting a few lusty blows. He got 30. And for Sri Lanka, Nuwan Pradeep, he picked up 6 wickets, his first 5 wicket haul in Test cricket. Lairu Kumara picked up a few consolations at the end to end with 3 for, and Ranganaherath got the other wicket. Sri Lanka in reply, they ended up being 5 down at the end of the second day. Pretty average from them. Upul Taranga getting 64, the only real contribution in the top order before a bizarre run out ended his innings. Angelo Matthews, he was pretty decent. He got 83, played very positively despite the situation, but he'll certainly be missing out on a Test century. On day 3, really it was the Dilruwan Pereira show. He got 92 not out. What an effort from him after being forced to come up to number 7 due to Asela Gunaratne's injury. Good from him. But for the most part, Sri Lanka, apart from him, that lower order did not offer too much resistance, and they were bowled out for 291 just after lunch on the third day. For India, Mohammad Shami did a little bit of damage. Late day 2, he picked up a couple of wickets. Umesh Yadav picked up just the 1 wicket, a little bit expensive. Ravichandran Ashwin, only 1 wicket, but I thought he bowled very nicely. Ravindra Jadeja, he got 3 wickets. And Hardik Pandya also got a wicket on debut, so the wickets were shared around for the Indian bowlers. In the second innings, India decided not to enforce the follow-on, and this was a case of declaration bowling and the batsmen filling their boots. Here, Abhinav Mukund getting a welcome 81 to ease the pressure on him a little bit, although he will be disappointed to miss out on a century. But really, it was about Virat Kohli getting back to form in Test cricket. He got his 17th Test 100 with an exquisite 103 off 136 deliveries. And India ended up declaring half an hour into day 4 at 244.3 and setting Sri Lanka exactly 550 to win the game. Obviously, Sri Lanka's bowling in this second innings lacked a lot of energy due to the fact that it was really declaration bowling. Dilruwan Pereira, Lairu Kumara, and Danushka Gunatilaka picking up a wicket apiece, but not much to write home about. In the fourth innings, Sri Lanka, well, they subsided pretty quickly, to be honest. The game ended late day 4. They only lasted 76 overs and were bowled out for 245, although Ranganaherath and Asela Gunaratne did not bat. Ranganaherath picked up a finger injury in the field. It was to his spinning finger, actually, and he picked that up during India's second innings. So Sri Lanka were reduced to the 9 batsmen. But I think the story of this innings was certainly Dimuth Karunaratne's 97. He'll be gutted to miss out on a Test century there. Really, really should have got one. But he played very nicely. He got 97 off 208 deliveries. Niroshan Dikvella offered some resistance towards the end as well with a rearguard 67 off 94, very aggressive as usual. But apart from that, absolutely nothing to write home about as the rest of the batting pretty much subsided without much of a puff. And that was the game. India win by 304 runs. In this innings, it was Ravi Jadeja and Ravi Ashwin doing the business. They picked up 3 wickets apiece. Mohammad Shami and Umesh Yadav also got a wicket apiece. And that was that. Now, let's get into the breakdown. And I'm going to start with Sri Lanka. The batting for Sri Lanka in this game. It was poor. There's no doubt about it. This was a good pitch to bat on from start to finish. And I know that Asela Gunaratne was unable to bat in either innings. That was certainly unfortunate. But really, to not get 300 in either innings is disappointing for Sri Lanka. Now, looking at the batting individually, Dimuth Karunaratne. Now, I've been a critic of him. I think he should have been dropped for a while now. But he played a really nice, fluent innings in the second innings. Under pressure in the fourth innings, there was very little possibility of Sri Lanka saving that game, but he dug deep and did the business, deserved a century. After the first innings, when he was out for 2, I thought he has to go. But then he pulls that innings out of the bag. Dimuth Karunaratne is frustrating. There's no doubt about that. He's frustrating to watch. If anyone remembers, 3 years ago he got 150 against New Zealand at Christchurch when Sri Lanka were asked to follow on. That was an incredible innings under trying circumstances. And after that, I thought, this guy's the real deal. And then for the next year, 2015, he still looked pretty good. I thought, okay, this guy's going to be a quality opener for Sri Lanka for many years. But then since 2016, there's been a lot of indifferent performances from him, which have really frustrated me. If you have a look at the last 12 test matches he's played against teams not named Zimbabwe or Bangladesh, he averages 23. And that's including this game where he got 97. To me, that's not good enough. That's simply not good enough. And the reason he's been able to stay in the team has been these performances against Bangladesh and Zimbabwe. Otherwise, he would have got dropped if those 12 games were just in a row. So he has been lucky on that front. But I just hope that this 97 can bring back the old Karunaratne, because that Karunaratne is a good player. He is a good player. The other enigma about him, the enigmatic quality that he averages 27 in the first innings of tests, but 42 in the second innings. That is bizarre, to say the least. The fact that you would think the second innings is more difficult conditions, that he's performing much better. Now, if he could start scoring runs in the first innings, then he could be a decent test player. But no doubt with Karunaratne, I would like to see some consistency. One innings per series is not going to cut it. He has to continue to deliver if he is to prove that he is capable of being a test opener. He has shown flashes of his quality, but it needs to be consistent. Upul Taranga, he got a nice 50 in this game. A bizarre run out, really. In 2 months' time, that will be not out under the rule change. Obviously, his forward momentum really just meaning that the bat was raised off the ground. And unfortunately, that was at the same time that Wriddhiman Saha took off the bails. Now, for Taranga, I look at him. He's got talent. There's no disputing that. But as a test batsman, he has underwhelmed. He has not fulfilled his potential. His technique is lacking. He's very loose. And I think that's a big problem, particularly if he's to go outside Asia. Now, if you look at Upul Taranga's career, he's played 21 test matches against teams not named Zimbabwe or Bangladesh. And in those games, he averages 25 and has not scored a test century. So he has scored all his centuries against Zimbabwe and Bangladesh. To me, that shows he has not proven himself at the highest level yet. He still is not a test batsman, in my opinion. However, that doesn't mean he should be dropped. This is the state that Sri Lanka are in, that he is one of Sri Lanka's 2 best openers. But for Taranga, he needs to be converting these starts into more substantial contributions. If he can do that against the best teams, then he'll go a long way to proving himself as a test batsman. But honestly, his technical deficiencies make me doubt that he'll be able to do that. Now, Danushka Gunatilaka, he failed both times in this game. I thought they should have played Dhananjaya De Silva. I talked about that in my preview. Now, I thought Gunatilaka, if he was going to play, would open and Taranga would drop down to 4. That would have made a little bit of sense. But what they did made absolutely no sense. Gunatilaka is an opener, so you make him debut at number 3. Now, bear in mind, opening is very different to any other position. The difference between 4 and 5 is nowhere near as big as the difference between opening and number 3. Opening is just different to any other position in the game. So he had to come in at number 3. And what's more is you push Kusal Mendes down to 4. The guy you're supposed to be grooming to be the long-term number 4, you push him down the order. What kind of statement does that say? You say the hypocrisy is really something here. They said they wanted a stable batting unit. Well, you just about did the worst thing. You could have gone about this so much better. Think about it. If they'd played Dhananjaya De Silva, Mendes could have stayed at 4, and Dhananjaya De Silva, who is a middle order batsman, could have slotted in at 4. It just makes absolutely no sense. The reasoning that Asanka Gurusinghe had for this decision was that Gunatilaka's in form, but we couldn't play him at opener because the openers are there, and he can't bat in the middle order, so we had to put him at 3 and push Mendes down. So let me get this straight. You say he couldn't bat in the middle order, yet you had a middle order batsman in the squad in Dhananjaya De Silva. It's incredible. The other thing is you're giving a guy a debut when you know it's a stopgap until Chandimal comes back in the next test. Why would you give a guy a debut and then just sack him off the next game? What kind of message does that send? The selection policy, again, bizarre. How can you only give a guy one chance in his wrong position, may I add? It just baffles me time after time, the decisions that the Sri Lankan selectors make. But yes, Danushka Gunatilaka really showed that he is somewhat technically deficient. And I don't think he is a test batsman, to be quite honest with you. I think that Sri Lanka are better off going with Dhananjaya De Silva if they were to go down this route again. So that's that on that. Now, Kusal Mendes, he didn't have a great game. He got a duck in the first innings and he got a 36 a start in the second. Obviously, it was unfortunate that he was dropped down to 4. But for me, Kusal Mendes, it's just about him growing. He has to play every test. That's what he's doing. They're just letting him grow. He's still 22. He's young. At the moment, he hasn't ticked on to an elite level. He still shows flashes. The consistency is not there in his game. I still think technically he could work on a few things. I think he gets squared up way too easily against the fast bowlers, and that's definitely something he should work on. But really, I think it's just patience. Sri Lanka aren't in a position where they can be picky. They have to be patient with Kusal Mendes. He's a special talent, and hopefully he delivers in the next game. The conundrum, the Angelo Matthews, the Angelo Matthews conundrum continues. Now, he got 83 in the first innings, and you thought, okay, he could be back. But to miss out on 100 in the way he did was very disappointing. It looked like there was 100 for the taking for Angelo Matthews in this innings. Now, he got caught by Kohli at short cover, just trying to chip the ball over the infield. It was a very lazy shot. The execution was wrong. The shot selection was right, but the execution was lazy from Angelo Matthews. And I thought that he really needed that 100 to get that confidence back. He hasn't got a test 100 for 2 years, and that would have been big for him. Then in the second innings, he goes and throws his wicket away, comes down the ground, doesn't get to the pitch of the ball, and he gets a leading edge and is caught at point of Ravi Jadeja. That was so bad from a supposed senior player, the most senior player, batsman in the team. This is a big conundrum for Sri Lanka because now he's not the captain, so that pressure isn't on him. But Matthews is still getting out in bizarre ways. I'm not sure what is really getting to him. There must be something that's mentally affecting him because the way he's been getting out recently is quite bizarre. And I just really hope he can get out of this slump because Sri Lanka desperately need Angelo Matthews at his best. I thought Niroshan Dikvela in the first innings, he kind of bottled it because usually he's aggressive. It doesn't matter what the situation is, he likes to counterattack. He likes to put pressure back on the bowlers. And in the first innings, he was quite timid and he paid the price. He just prodded forward and got caught. It was an excellent catch by Abhinav Mukund, but he was a bit defensive. So it was good to see in the second innings that he was more aggressive. He played a really nice 67. That's the way he's going to play. He's got to take it to the bowlers. He's a talented stroke maker. I think he's a good player that Sri Lanka definitely need to develop. Hopefully he can learn to bat bigger. I think if he can do that, then he can be a really nice test player. But definitely someone that Sri Lanka can look to as a future world-class player maybe. You've got Dilruwan Pereira. Now, talk about enigmas. Sri Lanka have enigmas everywhere you look in this team. Now, Dilruwan Pereira batted beautifully in this game. He did not feel coming up to number 7, did not add any pressure. In fact, he batted better at number 7. He looked like a batsman. He got 92 not out in the first innings. He was unlucky. He was stranded. He was at ease with the bowling. It was just the fact that Sri Lanka ran out of batsmen that cost him that maiden test century. And even in the second innings, he got 21 not out. So he wasn't dismissed in this game, and he got 113 runs. That was incredible. He was the best batsman for Sri Lanka in this game, which I've got to give him my kudos to. But, what is he in the team for? He's in the team to bowl, and his bowling was very poor in this game. He picked up only 1 wicket, and that was in, let's see how many overs he bowled. He bowled 45 overs and got 1 wicket. And he was not able to even keep the runs down. He bowled way too flat, I felt. Probably a little bit too quick for this pitch, so was unable to get a lot of bite. And just bowled a lot of deliveries that made it very easy for the Indian batsman to rock onto the back foot, cut him away, or pull him away. It was just poor bowling from Dilruwan. And really, this is symptomatic of the Dilruwan enigma that Sri Lanka face. Now, the test that he's played this year, he's played 4. He averages 63 with the bat. But the job that he's in the team to do, bowling, he averages 50 with the ball this year. That is unacceptable for a frontline bowler in Sri Lanka as an off spinner to average 50 with the ball. That's just not good enough. There's no getting around it. It is just not good enough. But his batting has been excellent this year. So this is a real dilemma for Sri Lanka. The fact of the matter is, I've said for a while that Dilruwan is an average spinner, but he's a capable lower order batsman. And I think his batting form gives Sri Lanka the option of playing the extra bowler in the next test match, an option that I will talk about a little bit later in this podcast. So that really wraps up the Sri Lankan batting. Really, the bottom line for the batting is, where are the hundreds? There's too many 50s without going on to the big scores that the Indians were able to get. India had 300s in this game. Sri Lanka didn't have any. So that's the real area of concern, not being able to get those big runs that allow you to get the 400s, the 500s. That's what Sri Lanka need. With the bowling, I thought it was fairly toothless for the most part from Sri Lanka. I look at it, Dilruwan Pereira, as I said, was poor. Now, Rangan Herath, India have his number. It's simple. He averages 47 against India. That is not good. That is not good. Incredibly, the highest average, the next highest average he has against a team is 32 against England. 47 is his average against India. That just shows India is his bogey team. They have his number. They've been able to use their feet to him and really nullify his effect. The Indian batsmen have played him exquisitely ever since the last Galle test, where he wreaked havoc. So you've got to give credit for the Indians. But with Rangan Herath being ineffective, it made it very difficult for Sri Lanka to take 20 wickets. And you look at the fast bowling, Nuwan Pradeep. I got to say, big up Nuwan Pradeep. In the second innings, he was tired. It was declaration bowling. I'm not going to look into that too much. But in the first innings, he got 6 wickets, and he looked a threat every time he bowled. Looked a little tired towards the end of the innings when Hardik Pandya and Mohammad Shami were having a go at him. That bouncer tactic really was a bit bizarre. But for the rest of the innings, he was fantastic. The the quality with which he bowled on that type of surface, it had good carry, but it was a very good batting pitch. He got wickets with bounces. He got Kohli and Ashwin gloved them out, and then he just bowled the good old line and length type deliveries as well, and that accounted for Pujara and Mukund. And then the absolute rip snorting Yorker he bowled to Ravi Jadeja. It was just the whole package this innings with Nuwan Pradeep. He was really, really good. And he's been Sri Lanka's best test bowler for a while now. He's quick enough. He bowls 135 to 140. He has a good bouncer that really gets up and tests the batsman. He has a good Yorker, and he's able to bowl pretty consistently on that off stump line, and he's able to get the ball to nip because he has good seam presentation. His action is nice and streamlined. He's able to, even on these types of surfaces, get the ball to occasionally move off the surface. I think he's a really good bowler in these conditions, and I know his average is not flattering. It's 41, but in his last 17 tests, which is a pretty big sample size, his average is 32. Now, consider the fact also that he's played more than half those tests in Sri Lanka. 32 is a very respectable average for a fast bowler, let alone a fast bowler that plays most of his cricket in Sri Lanka. So he's certainly become a test quality bowler, and he's going to be crucial for Sri Lanka to have any chance of competing with India for the rest of this series. Lairu Kumara, I thought he was very erratic on the first day. He does create chances. That's what he's going to do, Lairu Kumara. He got 3 wickets in the first innings, and even in the second innings, he was probably the most threatening bowler for Sri Lanka. But he's so erratic, and he bowls so many boundary deliveries. It's amazing to me that a test bowler can't put 4 or 5 balls in a row on the spot. It really is quite incredible to me. He's got all the raw tools. He's well built. He's fast, and if he bowls it in the right area, he can bowl an unplayable delivery. But really, he needs a lot of refinement. If he refines himself and gets the control, then he can be a world-class bowler. But at the moment, he's just talent. And once again, Sri Lanka don't have the luxury of being picky with a player like Kumara. They have to play him. But that is the fact against a team like India. They're going to score heavily off him. I know that he did have a chance dropped off him early on day one. That was Shikhar Dhawan. Very costly that was for Sri Lanka. But the problem is that he really does leak runs, and he was a complete liability on the first day for Sri Lanka. And in a 2-pace bowler attack, that is something that you cannot afford. So, for me, the bottom line for this bowling attack is that it simply doesn't have enough penetration on a pitch that doesn't offer a lot to trouble this India team. They are not going to take 20 wickets on a flat pitch against this India team. And you also look at it, where's the 5th bowling option now that Asela Gunaratne is down? Danushka Gunatilaka literally rolls his arm over. There is absolutely nothing going on in his bowling. So if he's the 5th option, that's not really a good sign for Sri Lanka. Obviously, Angelo Matthews, he said he won't bowl in Test cricket anymore to prolong his career. Definitely a wise decision for me. But Sri Lanka really now have to toss up whether they want to play an extra bowler in the next game, because they really don't look like taking 20 wickets at the moment. In the field, I thought Sri Lanka were flat. They dropped a couple of chances in the first innings, but it's more than that with Sri Lanka. I think even after a wicket, 1 over later, they're back to being flat in the field. They don't create an atmosphere that would intimidate any batsman. They almost welcome new batsmen to the crease, I feel. The Indian batsmen had a ball out there. They were having a party in the middle. There was very little pressure being placed on them, and I think that it's a big problem for Sri Lanka in tests that they do not exert any pressure in the field, and that is kind of why it's very difficult for them to get back-to-back wickets when the pitches aren't really in favour of the spinners. So that, unfortunately, is something that can't be coached. That's a mindset, and obviously this team is lacking in confidence. So hopefully, I don't know how they're going to gain confidence, because this team doesn't look like winning a test match against good opposition for a while, but they're going to have to somehow strike up some confidence because in the field they look flat and dejected. And it really, really shows in the results. That's really it that I have to say for Sri Lanka. The bottom line is that this team is in a downward spiral and they're looking like they could become the new West Indies and Zimbabwe. These are facts. This year they've had a woeful year in Test cricket. They got humiliated in South Africa. Bangladesh won their first ever test against Sri Lanka, and that was in Sri Lanka. They barely scraped past Zimbabwe, who play next to no Test cricket, and now it looks like they're going to get absolutely demolished by this Indian outfit. So really, the signs are not good for Sri Lanka. It's an ominous future, dark clouds around Sri Lanka cricket, and certainly it's a tough time if you're a Sri Lanka cricket fan. Now on to India. And India, what can I say? This was a routine victory for them. They looked very good as they have for a long time. Let's have a breakdown for them. The batting, I think, was fantastic. Shikhar Dhawan, what a way to come back to Test cricket. I think he could have got a triple hundred on the first day if he hadn't thrown his wicket away there. I think he had a triple hundred there for the taking. I think he'll be very disappointed not to have got more. But the thing about Shikhar Dhawan is I said in the preview that this was as good a time as any for him to get a huge score. And that's exactly what he did. He capitalized on the mediocre Sri Lankan bowling. And when he's in full flow, when the pitch is ripe for batting and it's just coming on the bat, there are not many batsmen in world cricket that are more dangerous than Shikhar Dhawan. And ultimately, no matter how well he does in this series, there's still going to be that question mark about whether he can play proper test bowling in testing conditions. And when India go on big overseas tours, do I see him being a first choice opener? No. But when you have a guy like Shikhar Dhawan as your third choice, you are blessed with a world of riches. So it was a great game for Shikhar Dhawan. Abhinav Mukund, now, this is a guy coming into this game had played 6 tests and averaged 19. And really it looked like this was last chance saloon because KL Rahul is fit for the second game. Abhinav Mukund failed in the first innings, but in the second innings, he got 81. Now, the time that he came into bat, you couldn't have asked for better circumstance. You had a lead in the first innings of 309. The opposition bowling, which anyway is mediocre, is now completely dejected and tired. It was the perfect time to come out to bat, and he certainly cashed in. He'll be disappointed to get out to Danushka Gunatilaka and not get a maiden test century. But look, for me, Abhinav Mukund, at the end of the day, he is India's fourth choice opener. I think that he hasn't proven himself in Test cricket still. As I said, extremely comfortable circumstances that he came into bat in that second innings. He hasn't proven himself yet to be a Test batsman. And he is India's fourth choice. But when you have a guy with decent Test experience like that as your fourth choice opener, who has got a decent score in their last game, who would now be high on confidence, that is an incredible position to be in as a team. And India, they just have a wealth of options in the opening position. I must say his fielding close in was fantastic at bat pad. He was fantastic. That catch that he took of Dikvella in the first innings was incredible. The run out of Taranga, he was really good in there, Abhinav Mukund. So the fact that he was able to contribute that as well was fantastic. Unfortunately for him, I think he's going to drop out next game. But again, fourth choice opener for India. That is the wealth of riches that they do possess. Cheteshwar Pujara, what can you say about this guy? For me, he's India's best Test batsman. I think that he's simply unstoppable, particularly if there's nothing in the pitch. I wouldn't look to any other batsman in world cricket than Cheteshwar Pujara. He averages well over 50 now. He put in a master class. He had good old-fashioned Test batting, chanceless batting. Really a joy to watch Cheteshwar Pujara, the mastery of him. And as I said, he's India's best Test batsman. The assuredness which he has at the crease. The only thing I'd probably say about him is running between the wickets. A little bit questionable, but the guy's a sublime batsman. And I think he's underrated because he's in the same team as Virat Kohli, but he is something else. One of the elite Test batsmen he is, for sure. Now, Virat Kohli himself, the captain, 8 innings, without a 50 he had coming into that second innings, and then he got 100, a welcome return to form for Kohli. As with Mukund, you couldn't have asked for a better situation to come in and bat him. But hey, 100's 100, and I think Kohli really needed that just to get that little bit of a monkey off his back in the test game. And at the end of the day now, he averages 50 in all formats once again, which is mind-boggling. He's an incredible batsman, Virat Kohli. Just the ease with which he played, it was almost silly. The ease with which he got that 100 in the second innings, it was like a video game. It was just absolutely a joke how easy it was for him. But to be quite honest, he is not the best test batsman in the world. That, I believe, belongs to Steve Smith. And I think that Pujara, Williamson, and Root, I would say you can argue that all of them are better than Kohli. I don't think you can say that Kohli's better than any of them definitively. So I think Kohli still needs to be more dominant in Test cricket because he does have these occasional patches that those players really never do. So if he can work on that, then he can become the best. But he's still a wonderful, wonderful player and a wonderful captain for this Indian team. Ajinkya Rahane didn't have much to do. He got a 50 in the first innings. He did his job. We know Rahane is a class player. There's not much to say about him in this game. As for Ravichandran Ashwin with the bat, again, not much to say. It's very handy to have a guy like him who is a world-class bowler who also bats more than well in the team. Ridwan Saha only really got one chance, but he came in when India were looking for quick runs. Again, can't draw much into Ridwan Saha's batting from this game or any of the other batsmen, apart from Hardik Pandya, who showed that, obviously, once again, great times coming to bat with minimal pressure, but he's capable of scoring really quickly down the order. He's the kind of guy that can counter-attack. We saw that in the Champions Trophy final. He's that potential counter-attacking weapon that India don't actually have in their lower order. Ashwin and Saha are accumulator types. Hardik is that counter-attacker that can really shift the momentum very quickly. And fair play to Hardik, he took his chance really well in this game, and I got to give him credit for that. Now, in terms of the bowling for India, I thought not much again that we learned because it was just so easy for them. They're just so superior to Sri Lanka. I thought that Umesh Yadav and Mohammad Shami, they were a little bit expensive. I felt that they were both a bit erratic in this game. Obviously, the pitch wasn't particularly great for fast bowlers, but at the end of the day, they still were able to pick up crucial wickets for their team. They're both class bowlers. And in this game, they weren't really forced to bowl at their best. So ultimately, what they did was more than enough. As for Ravichandran Ashwin and Ravindra Jadeja, I thought they bowled beautifully. I thought Ashwin was fantastic in the first innings. Didn't get the reward, but he got the 3 wickets in the second innings. Look, Ashwin is just a wonderful bowler. There's no getting around it. The drift that he bowled with was beautiful. He was able to get so much drift and really made both the left hand and the right hand batsman really struggle. If you looked at it, he bowled also a bit slower. I thought he bowled at the right speed, that he was able to get a bit of grip out of this surface, although it didn't offer a lot. It did offer something occasionally for Ashwin, the way he was bowling. That drift was able to tease the outside edge of the right-hander, and then the sharp spin was able to tease the edge of the left-hander. So he really troubled all comers in this game. And after 50 games now, he has 279 test wickets at an average of 25, looking like he's going to be the fastest to 300 test wickets. He's a fantastic player. I think that he's not the most athletic guy. He's a pretty unassuming character, and I think that's why some people almost don't take him seriously, kind of like Rangan Herath. He doesn't exactly look like an athlete, very unassuming type. So people don't take these kind of characters as seriously. But Ravichandran Ashwin is just a world-class player. He is fantastic in the test format. And India have spinning riches galore. Ravichandran Ashwin, what a bowler. Ravi Jadeja, he did the job as well. He took 6 wickets in this game, as usual. Relentless in his accuracy, absolutely relentless. Left-handers, right-handers alike just had no answer to Jadeja. Even on a pitch that didn't offer a lot, he's so difficult to play because he rarely offers that loose ball. He's a fantastic asset for this Indian team, Ravi Jadeja. And I think that the thing that they have over Ranganahera is the fact that these two spinners are able to consistently trouble both left-handers and right-handers. Ranganahera rarely looks very threatening against left-handers, so I think that's definitely something that Herath does not have in his artillery, shall I say, his arsenal that these two bowlers do have. Now, I'm not going to compare the bowlers as yet, the whole Herath versus Ashwin and Jadeja. I'll talk about that, I'm sure, at the end of this series because there are definitely some things to talk about that in regard to that, but that's another podcast. India in the field, I thought they did drop a few catches to be fair, although they were fairly inconsequential. But the difference for me in the field, then compared to Sri Lanka, is the atmosphere they create in the field. It's the fielding positions, it's their chat in the field, it's the way they walk in with the bowler, it's the quality of the bowling. And I think the intimidation factor that Virat Kohli sets, all these factors combine to make it a very uncomfortable atmosphere for the batsman to play against Indian bowling. Obviously, as well, the state of the match where India are often dominating. The difference in the atmospheres in the field really kind of sums up the difference in the teams, I feel. With Sri Lanka, the atmosphere is dead. With India, it's vociferous. And that difference really exhibits the difference in the morale of both teams, but also the quality of the teams, I feel. The bottom line for India is that this was a clinical win. You didn't learn much apart from that they have excellent players and great depth. I think that when you look at the Indian team, this team is nearly invincible in series at home. Obviously, the big question mark is whether they can win in Australia, in South Africa, in England. And we're going to find that out in the next year. They're touring all those places in the next year. So we are going to find out. But I believe they have the tools to. People saying, writing them off as flat track bullies are silly. They have good fast bowlers, good spinners, and good batsmen. They're good fielding unit. They have all the tools. There are very little holes in this team, this squad, I would say, of players. I think they'll be successful away from home, outside Asian conditions. This is a fantastic unit. It's a fantastic test team. They are really, really good at what they do, India. And I think people are belittling the achievements a little bit just because they're only playing in fairly familiar conditions. I wouldn't be surprised if they really do some damage in Australia, England, and South Africa. I think for India, the only slight problem I have with this game was the fact that they played Hardik ahead of Kuldeep Yadav. Now, I was very surprised that Hardik played. I didn't think that he would make his debut in this game. But what is clear is that India have so much quality that they have the luxury to be able to play Hardik Pandya, a guy who's not really a proper bowler. He's like a part-timer. To be fair to Hardik, he got some nice reverse going in the second innings. He's a skilled bowler. There's no doubt about it. But is he a refined test bowler yet? Probably not. And he came in under minimal pressure with the bat. So I don't think we can really fairly assess his quality as a test batsman other than the fact that he's got good potential. So really, that's the luxury that India have. They have such quality in their batting. The opposition is pretty weak that they're able to play a guy like Hardik, who's a bit of a bits and pieces cricketer, and more than get away with it. I think if you think about what he would have added to the team, I think Kuldeep would have added more. Another frontline bowler who has that X factor about him. You didn't need the batting of Hardik. When you have Ashwin at 6, Saha at 7, Jadeja at 8, and even guys like Muhammad Shami, he can hit a quick 20 or 30. There was really no need against this Sri Lankan attack on this flat track to play Hardik. I think that Kuldeep would have given more to the team, but that is the luxury that they have. Clearly, they see Hardik as a big player for them in the future. That's the luxury that India have. So that's all I really have to say on the matter. That is my review of the first test match, a comprehensive win for India, and I see this series only going one way, 3-0 to India. I'd be very surprised if it was any other way. I would say that if it wasn't that way, then it would have been rained out. Rain would have helped Sri Lanka and they would have managed to get a draw. I can't see them beating this Indian team. I'm sorry, the way they are. I'm going to preview the second test now because there's a ridiculously short turnaround, only 3 days gap between the tests. The second test starts in 2 days' time at the SSC. And well, there isn't too much to say on this, but I will start with some changes to the Sri Lankan squad now. Dinesh Chandimal is back from that pneumonia. He has recovered, so he will return to the team as captain. Incredibly, this would mean that in the last 6 games, Sri Lanka have changed captain in 5 of them. This kind of instability is not helping the team at all. But I digress. Chandimal will slot back in at 4. Kusalman is back to 3. Gunatilaka will drop out. Why, oh why did he debut when they knew he was only going to get 1 game? It just makes no sense when you have a guy with test experience like Dhananjaya De Silva already there. Baffling, as always. Now, Suranga Lakmal and Asela Gunaratne are out of the squad due to injury. Asela Gunaratne is out of the whole tour. Big blow for Sri Lanka, no doubt. Very unlucky. Suranga Lakmal picked up a back injury apparently during the Zimbabwe test match, which may explain a little bit why he was so poor in that game. But he's out. Interestingly, they didn't replace him in the squad with a fast bowler. They replaced him with a spinner, Lakshan Sandakan, coming back into the squad. So now there are 4 spinners in the squad. Now, this would suggest to me that Sri Lanka are looking to play 3 spinners and potentially play Dilruwan Pereira at 7, because really, to get this Indian batting out 20 wickets, they're going to have to try something different. Because with that bowling attack, they have no chance unless they put out a raging turner. Now, I said before the series that Sri Lanka would be mad to put out a raging turner. I'm changing my mind. The flat track, India's always going to win on a flat track because their batting is so superior. But putting a raging turner levels the playing field. And who's your biggest asset? Rangana Hera. Give him optimal conditions. So I actually think putting out a spinning track would be better. I've really come around to that idea. And that would level the playing field. As I've said before, extreme conditions tend to do that. And that would give Sri Lanka a sniff. And if they did put out a bit of a turner, then they could play the 4 bowlers. Then they could get away with that. But if the pitch is as flat as it was at Galle, they're going to have to play 5 bowlers because otherwise they have no chance with the current bowling to bowl out India. At the end of the day, you can get all the runs you want. You have to bowl the opposition out twice. So that is the primary concern for Sri Lanka if they're going to have a chance. So if it was a flat track, then you're going to have to play 5 bowlers. And it would appear that if that was the case, they'd be bringing in another spinner because they actually only have 1 spare fast bowler in the squad now compared to 2 spare spinners. So that would certainly be interesting. Dilruwan, as I've said, has proven that he could potentially play at number 7. And Sri Lanka could get away with that. Rangana Hera is still in the squad, so he should be okay from that finger injury. Now, I think probably the biggest talking point from the squad changes is Lairu Thirimana has been recalled. Now, it would appear that if Sri Lanka were to go in with just the 4 bowlers, i.e. play on a spinning track, which you would appear might be possible given the fact that they replaced a fast bowler with a spinner in the squad, then it would be Dhananjaya or Thirimana fighting it out for the place in the middle order, because as we well know, Dhanushka Gunatilaka cannot bat in the middle order. So this is very interesting. Now, I keep saying Lairu Kumara, wow. Lairu Thirimana has played 26 test matches at an average of 24 with the bat. 1 test century, that was against Bangladesh when they were not great. So really, he is proven as a very mediocre test batsman. And if you look at his recent domestic form, it's not very flattering either. In the Premier League season that has recently gone by, he played 8 games, he averaged 35, and he did not score 100. And this is in the Premier League, which is a very mediocre standard. He last played Test cricket mid last year, 2016, in the England tour. He played all those 3 games before he was dropped. Now, I look at Thirimana. He's had some great performances for Sri Lanka. I look at the 90-odd he scored in the Test match at the SCG against Australia when he was flown in to replace Sangakkara. This was like a real stopgap thing. To come in like that, incredible. He got 100 in an ODI at the Adelaide Oval. He got 100 in the Asia Cup final against Pakistan 3 years ago. He also is the youngest Sri Lankan to get a World Cup 100. He's done some great things for Sri Lanka, but recently he has played with a real negativity. He has looked devoid of confidence, and it's been about survival. His performances on the England tour, he didn't score a run, but he actually was able to last a lot of deliveries in all his innings. I think all his innings he played at least 50 balls, but he never got past 30. So he managed to take out a lot of time, but it was all about survival for Thirimana. And he really, I think, lost confidence, got into a negative spiral, and playing that way, you're rarely going to have success. And I don't know how he's going to regain his confidence, but he needs to because he's a good player. There's a good player there. He has a good technique. I think he has the technique to play at the test level, but he just has not had any confidence. And he's played just in a completely negative mindset that is not good. The other thing about Thirimana that I hope he's worked on is he doesn't rotate the strike well, which is a problem that a lot of Sri Lankan batsmen have, to be fair. And he also, when he does play a lot of dot balls in a row, he tends to panic, kind of like Dinesh Chandimal does, and he goes for a wild hack and gets out, usually down the ground, hacks it, trying to hack it over the offside, and he gets caught at cover or point. That's a very typical Thirimana dismissal, or a big booming drive and he gets bowled. Something like that is very, very typical Thirimana. And for me, I don't have a real problem with him being in the squad. I still expect if Sri Lanka were to go in with the 7 batsmen, that it should be Dhananjaya De Silva, who has performed more recently. But Thirimana is a guy that Sri Lanka have invested heavily in. Really has no form to go off, but they've really brought him back because they've invested so much in him. That's really why he's been brought back. I hope that he can come back to his best, because certainly he's an asset. He's still only, I think, 27, 28 years old, so he's still pretty young. And hopefully he does play for Sri Lanka again, but at the moment I just can't see how he should be in the team. So that is my Sri Lanka preview. As I said, the bowling, really, I think you've got to put out a pitch that offers a bit of assistance, to be honest. And if you did that, then it would mean that you could get away with playing just the 4 bowlers. So I think that would be ideal. And even then, you could talk about potentially leaving out Kumar and bringing in an extra spinner if you were to create a spinning track. I think you have to try and play with fire here, unfortunately. Try and combat India's fire with fire of your own. Because these flat pitches, clearly it's not going to work for Sri Lanka. It's not going to work. So that's that for Sri Lanka. Just put up some fight with the bat big. Hopefully put out a pitch that has a bit of assistance to allow this bowling attack to have a chance. As for the Indian team, well, what is there to say for India? This is really autopilot mode for India. I think KL Rahul will come back in for Abhinav Mukund, that is for sure. Tough for Abhinav Mukund after getting 81 in the second innings to be dropped, but that's the strength in depth that India possess, and I don't see that as a problem. I think it's a good thing. And apart from that, I think that potentially the only other change is Hardik could drop out depending on the conditions. I don't think the pitch will be like this, but if there was greed on the pitch, then I would think that Bhuvi would come in for Hardik, but I highly doubt that. And if there was a spinning track, which I think might actually happen, then you would think that Kuldeep would come in for Hardik. Because as I've said, Hardik is really a luxury selection. And if the pitch did take spin, then definitely Kuldeep would add more value to the 11 because your batting is already so stacked as it is. So for India, I think it's just don't be complacent, really, the main thing. They're clearly superior to Sri Lanka. And if they play anywhere close to their potential, they will win this game, regardless of whether they lose the toss. I think that it would take divine intervention for Sri Lanka, this Sri Lanka team, to beat this Indian team. So my pick is that India will win this game. And as I've said before, the only chance Sri Lanka have of potentially doing something is, well, one, the rain spoils the show for India, but more realistically, bat first and prepare a spinning track. That's the only chance they have. And even then, India's got better spinners, so yeah, even that is probably not going to do it. That's the sad reality for Sri Lanka cricket. India on top of the world, as they should be the way they're playing. But that is it for the podcast today. This was a long one, nearly an hour, but certainly there were a lot of thoughts that I had on the first game and obviously doing a little preview there of the second game. If you enjoyed the podcast, you can check it out. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. All those links can be found on the Twitter page. Tomorrow I will be reviewing the third test match between England and South Africa. So hopefully you can tune into that. But as always, thanks for listening, and I'll see you later.